Hey, this video is going to be about our MLA citation and its importance and the basics of it. If citation is brand new to you, hopefully this will give you a sense of what we're supposed to be doing and why we're supposed to be doing it. If you've done MLA citation, in a previous class, then hopefully this is a quick refresher that'll help you get all of that correct on our next essay. So there's lots of different types of formats that our essays can be in, and they're typically determined by the type of discipline you're writing in. So the humanities, like English, uses MLA, which stands for the Modern Language Association. If you're writing in the sciences, you'll typically use APA, which is the American Psychological Association. If you are writing in high levels of history, I think they use Chicago style. So all these different formats dictate where your page numbers go, how you incorporate quotation, how you cite your borrowed source information, etc. So in MLA, we're using MLA version 8. So if you're using outside materials, make sure that you're using the up-to-date version and not an older version. In our module folder, I have uploaded a packet that I put together that goes over the basics, but you can find, I've posted YouTube videos and our readings and announcements. The Purdue University Online Writing Lab, OWL, O-W-L, fantastic. Almost every institution of education has materials available. Just make sure you're using MLA 8, like I said. If you open up the file that I've uploaded, the citation and format packet, it shows that MLA citation, anytime we borrow information from an outside source, it doesn't come from our own experience, our own knowledge, our own brain. We borrow it from somewhere. We have to acknowledge where it came from. That helps protect against plagiarism. So we can't say, oh, well, she stole that person's idea and is presenting it as if it's her own. And it values and acknowledges intellectual property. So we want to give credit where credit's due. And if you come up with an idea on your own, fantastic. If you borrow from an outside source, fantastic. Tell us who you borrowed the idea from, the information. So if you are borrowing information from anywhere, a website, a book, a magazine, a podcast, a YouTube video, we need to cite it. So whether we are summarizing the information in our own words or directly quoting it, sometimes people think you only need to cite when you borrow the exact words. That's not true at all. You have to cite even if you're summarizing the information, because it's not your information. It's not your idea. Whether you quote it or summarize it has to be cited. Citation is two parts. Both have to be done correctly for your citation to protect you against plagiarism and get you full credits on our next essay. So there's the works cited page. The works cited page is the listing of the publication information for all the sources. So you list that there, and readers can go look at the exact website you looked at. They can get the exact magazine article you looked at, find the exact journal article that you're quoting from or whatever. The works cited page has very specific formats that those entries need to be in, and we'll look at that here in a second. The other part is the in-text citation. I think of in-text citation as like a little toothpick in a sandwich that you get at a diner or something. So every borrowed piece of information has a little toothpick in it so that we know which source on that works cited page this information came from and which one this did and this one and this one. So you have to have your in-text and your works cited page to be correct. So on this packet, the first part is the works cited page. So your works cited page, list it alphabetically, list your sources alphabetically. Do not put them in the order that you used them, because you may use source 1 and then source 3 and then source 1 again and then source 7 and then source 2 and then source 3 again. So you can't list them in the order that you used them. Alphabetize that list. Your works cited page gets its own page, even if you could put that, that small entry on the bottom of your 5th page, it gets its own page. It gets a title, it gets a page number. And you'll see an example here on page 1 of this format packet. When you look at these at the bottom of page 1, you'll see that they have what's called a hanging indent. Now the hanging indent is kind of like a reverse paragraph. Instead of the first line being indented and the second line being to the left, it's backwards. It starts to the left and then indents in. If you try to tab that second line on Microsoft Word, it'll move the whole thing over. So what I recommend is you type your whole entry out, highlight and right click, and then you'll be able to see the settings for paragraph spacing, and you can choose the special spacing of a hanging indent, and it'll make sure it's done correctly. You also see here that when you alphabetize, whether you are alphabetizing by an author or a different piece of information like article title or the movie title, you alphabetize by that. And also, like you see here with an inconvenient truth, we don't alphabetize by articles. So something like a, an, or the, you don't put that, alphabetized by that word. You go by the next main word. On page 2, you'll see that there's 10 pieces of information that the works cited entry is looking for. I have never seen a source have all 10 of these, so don't worry. If you don't have one of these things, you skip it. So if you're looking at the website, there's no author listed, skip it. You'll see here that the first thing is the author. You put the last name, comma, first name. This tells us what to do if we have 3 or more authors' names. What you don't want to do is if you don't have an author name, don't put anonymous, unknown, anything like that. And if it's something general, like it says staff writer, well, that's not a person's name, so you don't have an actual author. So you skip over to number 2, which is the title of your source. So you can see here how it's got the title highlighted. Some of these are in italics, some of these are in quotation marks. And how to think about those is that if it's a piece of a whole, the piece, like the article title or the song on the album or the poem in the collection, is in quotation marks. And then the container or something that is whole and unto itself that doesn't have parts, like the title of, a novel. It doesn't have smaller parts. So those would be in italics. The title of the container, you may not have a container. So if you have a book that's just a book, you skip number 3. But if you have an article that's posted on a website, your article is the source of the title, and then your title of your container is the name of the website. So here's some examples of how to do that. Number 4 is other contributors. So if it's been translated by somebody or if it's been edited. So if you pick up a collection of Kentucky poets and there's, the work in there of 30 poets, and you see it's edited by Morticia Addams. Well, Morticia Addams is the editor who put this book of other people's writing together. She put the anthology together. If you don't have other contributors, you skip it. Version, if this is like the 3rd edition of a book, that's where you put that information. Number, this is if you're looking at a journal and it has a volume and an issue. That's where you put this information. Publisher is the company that is publishing this book or whatever for the world. Your websites often don't have publishers. We don't really know who is putting this and funding this. It's not like you can open the copyright page of the front of the book to say, oh, this is HarperCollins or this is Penguin. Publication date is very important. If you have a year, like our books will often just say a year, put it. Magazines and journals may say, winter 2019, or it may have a month. Put it. Websites will have an exact day. Put the exact day if you have it. You'll see here that it's in that backwards MLA format where you have the day and then the month and then the year. Number 9 is our location. That's not talking about the location of the publisher. That's talking about the location of the piece in the container. So that would be our URL. So where is this article located on the National Geographic website? So this is where you'd copy and paste in your URL. Or if you're flipping through a journal and this article is on page 12 through 17, well, 12 through 17 is the location of the piece in the container. Optional elements we usually don't have, but if you wanted to say where an original publication date or the city of publication, you can add those there. So here's some examples. So that's the works cited page, and I know this is very quick and rushed. Part 2 is our in-text citation. So every time we borrow a piece of information, we need to put that toothpick in it so that we know which source on the works cited page this came from. So historically, we would put the author of the source and the page number. Well, many of our modern sources don't have pages and they don't have authors. So what do you do, right? Whatever goes first on your works cited page entry, so if you have a source that doesn't have an author but starts with an article title, if you have no author, cite to the article title where you need to in text. If there's no pages, you don't put anything there. One thing to note is that when you're looking at websites, you only include a page number if the website, you have to physically click to the next page and the next page and the next page. If you just scroll down a big column of text and you hit print and your printer puts that information on page 4, well, my printer doesn't do that. Or if I'm looking at the website, there is no page 4. So don't worry about page numbers unless you have to physically click to the next one and the next one. So you can see examples here. Your page number, if you have it, always goes in parentheses at the end of the borrowed information, whether you quote it or summarize it. The author's name you can put in your sentence or in your parentheses. You don't need it both. So here's some examples of how to do that. And then the last page is showing examples where if you have more than one author, how do you put that, and so forth. So remember that we have to cite everything that we borrow. We have to have the works cited page correct, and we have to have every piece of information with that little toothpick in it in our text. Because if we don't, then we're plagiarizing, which is a huge no-no in life in general, but also in academia. I mean, think about, the trouble that can not only in school you can be put up for a charge of academic dishonesty, but think of how you would feel if you did all this work for something and somebody swept in and pretended like it was theirs, their idea or their information or their work or their words. So this was a brief crash course. I'll post some other links under this. Let me know what kind of help you need with this because we got to make sure to get it right.